Hi everyone, back for the last part of our Week 5 history lesson about the first voyage of James Cook. Let's go back to our PowerPoint. This is where we finished up. Now, Cooktown is probably just about here on the northeast coast of Queensland, and we had just found out that Cook had run into the reef, and his boat was badly damaged. They tried to keep sailing for 4 more days, but then they pulled into a river, which we now call Cooktown. For obvious reasons, it was where Cook stayed. Okay, let's go back to our PowerPoint. Okay, so it took them about 2 months to repair the ship, which would have been very difficult. They didn't have supplies on board. They would have expected to have had some sort of means to repair the ship, but they certainly didn't have the tools and things that they needed to have created accommodation or huts for them to live in for that 2 months. So they were there for 2 months, and then they continued on their way after they'd repaired the Endeavour. And they stop at the very north of Cape York Peninsula at a place called Possession Island. And this is where Cook takes possession of the whole eastern coast of Australia in the name of King George III. He names it New South Wales, Wales being one of the countries belonging to Great Britain. And Possession Island was so called because that was where he took possession of the country. Okay, and then from there, Cook sailed back to England. So he was in Tahiti, around New Zealand, over to Australia, went up the north coast of Eastern Australia. Now, once he gets up to the Cape York up here, this is where the other explorers had already started charting. Remember, we had Jans who'd come down through the south side of Papua New Guinea and down onto the coast, the west side of Cape York. And then we had Dampier and Hartog who had landed on this side of the coast. So this part of the coast of Australia was quite well known. So Cook didn't really spend much time charting that area because it had already been charted. They just didn't know that it was all joined on to the one continent. Now, as Cook got up to the top of Cape York, he claimed it in the name of King George III, and then he went on to stop at the island of Suva, probably just to get fresh water, and then Batavia, which is what we know now as Jakarta in Indonesia. And Indonesia was the Dutch East Indies because the Dutch had set up their colonies there. Now, in Batavia, there was a great deal of malaria and dysentery, 2 conditions that were very damaging to human life, making the sailors very sick. And so subsequently, while they were in Batavia and as they set sail following that time, 30 men died either in Batavia or directly afterwards. So that would, and when you read through Cook's diaries, it's pretty much 1 every day. I think there was about 7 that died when they were in Batavia, and then they kept dying every day after that. Then as they sail from there, by this stage I imagine they were getting very anxious to get home. Now, this part of the world had already been well explored by the Spanish and the Portuguese, by the Dutch, by the French. So they didn't waste time trying to explore this area here. From Batavia, they left. They came down here and stopped at Cape Town, which is this cape here at the bottom of Africa is called the Cape of Good Hope. So they stopped in Cape Town, and then a little bit further along at a place called St. Helen. When they got to St. Helen, there were some other ships there that were heading back to Britain, And so they joined on with those ships. So I think there was 2 other ships there, and the 3 of them all sailed back along the West African coast and back up to Britain. They arrived in England on the 12th of July in 1770. Okay, and that's the end of our first voyage of Captain Cook. Our learning intention was to learn about Captain Cook's voyage to the east coast of Australia. You should be able to explain why Captain Cook came to Australia. Remember the secret orders he had. Draw a map to show where he sailed. You'll be doing that straight after. And describe what he did when he came to Australia. Okay, so charting the coast, going ashore to try and talk to the Aboriginal people. Okay, now, as a consolidation activity, I've given you a comprehension titled Captain James Cook. So read through that information and then answer the questions. Don't forget, when you've finished doing these comprehension and closed passages, make sure you're gluing them into your history book, because they're all a part of our learning. And if we're at school, we'd be gluing them in as well. So we don't want you coming back to school with lots and lots of pieces of paper. Try and glue them in as you're going. Then either use an atlas or the maps in the video to show the route that Cook travelled on his first voyage, and mark the places where he stopped on the blank map of the world. That will be in your package that you get at the beginning of each week. Okay, everyone, thank you for listening. I hope you're enjoying our history. I'm certainly enjoying teaching it. I love history, and I like the stories. I like finding out about the people and what they did, and I also like teaching it. So I hope you're enjoying it too. Bye.